These are 5 vacuum brands you would swear were rivals. Hoover, Dirt Devil, Royal, Oreck, Vax. Different names, different shelves, different loyal customers who will argue with you about which one is best. And every single one of them is owned by the same company, a Hong Kong manufacturer called Techtronic Industries, TTI for short, that quietly sits behind all 5. That's not a rumor, it's on TTI's own investor pages. 5 brands you think are competing for your money, and the competition is a costume. Behind the curtain, they answer to one owner, share engineering, and swap designs between each other like hand-me-downs. To understand how that happens, you have to understand a word the industry would rather you never learned. That word is OEM. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. It means a factory that builds a finished product for other companies to stamp their name on. There's a close cousin called ODM, the Original Design Manufacturer. And that one matters even more because an ODM doesn't just build your design, it already owns the design. It has a catalog. You flip through it like a menu, you point at the vacuum you like, you hand over your brand name and your chosen color, and a few weeks later boxes arrive wearing your logo. You didn't invent anything, you didn't engineer anything. You picked a machine that already existed and rented your name onto the side of it. That's the quiet joke in the title. You pick the logo. The factory picks everything else. And here's the part most people find hard to believe. TTI, the company that now owns those 5 famous vacuum names, started its whole life as exactly this kind of factory. Back in the 1980s, it wasn't a brand at all. It was a supplier that built products for other people to sell. It made cordless power tools that went out under the Craftsman name for Sears, and it built handheld vacuum cleaners that shipped under the Bissell label. The machines were TTI's. The names on them belonged to somebody else. That is the entire business model, running in plain sight for decades. And eventually the supplier just bought the brands too. So today, one owner controls Hoover, Dirt Devil, Royal, Oreck, and Vax, and it can move a design from one badge to another whenever it likes. A canister that sells as one brand in one country turns up as a different brand in another. Same guts, new sticker. When you own that many names, you don't build 5 different vacuums. You build a few good machines and you dress them in 5 different outfits. Now, owning the brands outright is only half of the story, and honestly, it's the cleaner half. It's legal, it's common, and once you know it, it's not even that shocking. The stranger part is what happens between companies that don't share an owner at all. Because a lot of vacuum brands that genuinely compete, brands with no corporate connection whatsoever, still quietly share the same factory. In China, there are contract manufacturers whose entire job is to build vacuums for whoever writes the purchase order. One of the better known is a Suzhou company called King Clean, and its client list includes names you'd never expect to see sitting side by side because they're supposed to be enemies on the shelf. It builds for the people behind Shark. It builds for Bissell, 2 brands you'd compare against each other in a store aisle, and their machines can roll off the same lines in the same building. It goes further than that. Kenmore, the vacuum brand you'd find under the Sears name for generations, was never really made by Sears at all. For years, those machines were built mostly by Panasonic and Sanyo. The name on the front was a store's name. The engineering inside came from electronics giants you'd recognize instantly if their own logo had been on it. So you've got 2 forces stacking on top of each other. One owner quietly holding a fistful of rival brands, and independent factories quietly building for rival companies. Put them together, and the shelf you're standing in front of is far less crowded than it looks. What feels like a dozen choices can trace back to a small handful of factories. And this is where it gets expensive for you, because those shared machines are priced as if they're completely different products. A factory sells a given unit to each brand for roughly the same amount at volume, maybe $50 or $70 a machine. What happens next is pure positioning. One brand decides to be the value play. It lists the machine cheap, runs thin margins, and wins by being the affordable option. Another brand takes a near-identical build, photographs it on a marble countertop, uses the word engineered a lot, and asks 3 or 4 times as much. A third bundles a fabric bag and a longer warranty, films a moody launch video, and pushes the price higher still. Nothing meaningful inside the vacuum changed. The same motor is wrapped in $90 of expectation in one box and $400 of expectation in another. You are not paying for a better machine. You are paying for the story printed on the outside of a very similar one. And once you know that, you start seeing the fingerprints everywhere. The first fingerprint is the spec sheet. Pull up 2 vacuums from 2 brands that supposedly compete and read the technical details slowly. Suction rated at the same figure, runtime listed at the same number of minutes, dustbin measured to the same fraction of a liter. When 2 independent companies land on numbers that match down to the decimal, they did not arrive there separately. They copied the same source because it is the same source. The second fingerprint is the parts. Go hunting for replacement filters and you'll find a filter sold for one brand slides perfectly into a rival's machine. The rollers interchange. The battery packs share the same odd shape and the same clip. Accessory sellers figure this out fast, which is why one universal filter listing will quietly name 6 or 7 brands it happens to fit. Those sellers aren't guessing. They measured the parts, and the parts came from the same mold. The third fingerprint is the manual. 2 rival brands will ship instruction booklets with the same diagrams, the same numbered steps, and sometimes the same small translation error frozen in place because someone at the factory wrote one manual years ago and every brand has reused it since. A shared typo is a confession. It tells you both booklets came from the same desk. The fourth fingerprint is the photography. Lazy brands use the factory's own product renders, so you'll find the identical hero image, same vacuum, same angle, same lighting, living on 2 storefronts under 2 names. Sometimes they don't even recolor it. If you want every one of these tells in a single checklist, my vacuum buying and maintenance guide is linked right below. Now, the honest question at this point is simple. If it's the same machine, does it matter which logo you buy? And the answer is more interesting than a flat yes or no. Because the logo, it turns out, is not nothing. 2 brands can sell the same vacuum and still deliver completely different experiences, and the difference lives in the parts the factory doesn't control. Warranty is one. If your motor dies in month 14, a brand with a real support team and a long policy will send you a new unit. A brand that was a marketing shell selling a rebadged machine may have already vanished, its listing replaced by a new name selling the same vacuum to the next round of buyers. The hardware was identical. The promise behind it was not. Support is another. Parts availability is another. Whether the seller honors returns is another. You are, in a strange way, not buying a vacuum at all. You're buying a relationship with whoever stands behind it, and some of those companies stand very firmly, and some of them are a logo, a warehouse account, and an exit plan. Which brings us to the fastest, most slippery corner of this world, and that's the churn. On big marketplaces, you'll notice a certain kind of brand. The name is a random string of capital letters that means nothing. It appeared 8 months ago. It already has thousands of reviews. And if you check back in a year, it's gone. And a fresh string of capital letters is selling a vacuum that looks awfully familiar. That's not a brand in any real sense. That's a listing strategy. The same catalog machine gets floated under a disposable name, pumped with early reviews, ridden until the ratings sag, and then abandoned before the warranty claims come due. Then the cycle restarts with a clean slate. So the 5 brands from one factory aren't always 5 companies with headquarters and staff. Sometimes they're one owner holding 5 famous names. Sometimes they're rivals sharing one contract factory. And sometimes they're 5 costumes worn by the same anonymous seller. In every version, the factory got paid the moment the boxes left the loading dock, and it does not care which logo wins. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because the point isn't to make you cynical about every vacuum on the shelf. The point is to make you impossible to overcharge. Start by refusing to pay for the logo alone. When you find a vacuum you like, take its exact specs, the suction figure, the runtime, the bin size, and search those numbers instead of the brand name. If the same machine surfaces under 3 other labels at half the price, you just watch the trick happen in real time, and now you get to decide whether the expensive badge is buying you anything real. Then judge the things the factory can't fake. Look at the length and terms of the warranty. Look at whether the company has existed for more than a year and answers its emails. Look at whether filters and batteries are easy to buy, because a vacuum you can't maintain is a vacuum with an expiration date. Read the negative reviews, not the glowing ones, and read what happened when something broke, because that story is the only part of the product the rebadging can't copy. And if you'd rather not memorize any of this, My full buying and maintenance guide does the checking for you, and it's linked in the description. Here's the reframe that changes everything. The fact that 5 brands trace back to one factory or one owner is not the scandal you might think it is. That budget badge really is mechanically close to the premium one, which means the smart move was never to fear the cheap logo. The smart move is to find the machine you actually want and then buy it wearing the cheapest trustworthy name it comes in. The industry is betting you'll never look past the label, that you'll assume a higher price means a better motor, that a premium name means premium engineering, that 5 different boxes mean 5 different products. Now you know that sometimes the box is the only thing that's different. 5 brands, 1 factory, and the only real choice they ever gave you was which logo you'd pay extra to believe in. Next time, believe in the machine.